No, without further ado, we'll open the meeting for the planning board, Classic Planning Board for September 6th, 2023. Alphabetical roll call, starting with Clark.
Mark Brewer here.
Tom Callahan here.
Kevin Hine here.
Deirdre Hobson here. Amy, you muted.
Amy Glassmeyer here.
Okay. All right, so look at the agenda. Hold on one sec. On our agenda, although different times are stated, everything was scheduled to be continued to 6:30 tonight. The 94 Black Horse Lane matter is postponed until our next meeting on September 20th. And then the matter of 20 Parking Way, which is another continued matter, has been withdrawn. So we will start tonight with the large home review on 80 Nichols Road. But is there anybody in the audience who needs to speak to either of the two matters that are not going to be heard tonight? I saw various.
Do we have to officially continue?
Yes, you do. And you have to officially accept the withdrawal.
Oh, okay, all right, so I'll take a motion on 94 Black Horse Lane to continue it to Wednesday, September 20th, 6:30.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Mark
Aye.
Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Hine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, aye.
Okay. I assume, I thought I saw Adam's name in the list of attendees. I don't know, Adam has needed anything to say about it, but
He hasn't raised his hand, so I'm
no,
assuming.
okay. All right. And the next motion about 20 Parking Way to accept the withdrawal of the site plan application.
Could you please indicate that it is with no prejudice?
You can make the motion any way you want. I'm asking for the motion on that.
Well, I'd like to add that to your motion.
Okay.
Because the applicant asked for that specifically.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Mark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Hine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, aye.
Thank you. All right. There was nobody here in the attendees regarding that one, was there?
Would you like me to read the notice of the public hearing?
For 80?
Correct.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, pursuant to MGL Chapter 40-A and 300-5.4 of the Cohasset zoning bylaws, the planning board will hold a virtual public hearing on the Zoom platform webinar ID 88309473519, passcode 868692005 on Wednesday, September 6, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. for a large house plan review for property being shown on Cohasset's assessor maps E2-21-076 80 Nichols Road, Cohasset, Massachusetts 02025. The application is for a large house plan review for a single family home with a total residential gross floor area, RGFA, of 4854 SF. The application is submitted by Peter and Danielle Schreier of 80 Nichols Road, Cohasset, Massachusetts 02025. A copy of the application and plans accompanying documents are on file for viewing in the town clerk's office at Cohasset Town Hall, 41 Highland Avenue, Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Electronic versions of application material can be obtained by visiting https://cohassetma.org 524 active ACT IVE planning board applications. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the application should access the virtual meeting at the time so designated. Signed, Thomas J. Callahan, Chair, Planning Board.
Thank you, Amy. See, we have Mr. Schreier and Mr. Chiriaki with us, gentlemen.
Hi, good evening.
Good.
Let me just ask a question. Peter Schreier, thank you for hearing us tonight. Cassandra, is Carmen Hudson? Oh, I see her coming on now. Okay. We brought
Right.
Carmen as well. So my wife Danielle is here with me. Thank you for hearing us tonight. Sorry, it's hard to squish into the
That's all
laptop.
right, that's all right.
So I'm only going to talk for 2 seconds because being an attorney, we talk all the time, and I'm going to let really John do the talking. But we were talking earlier today and thought it made sense to at least give you, our vision as to what we're doing. So we bought 80 Nichols back in 2021. It's a 1950s ranch. It was one of the first houses developed on that end of that street over there, the offshoot on Nichols Road. The house is a beautiful house. We're really happy to be in Cohasset. My parents are in their late 80s, and we are trying to do some work into the house that will give us the ability to follow the concept of aging in place. And if my parents move in with us, we're going to build a larger bedroom on the first floor that has wide enough doorways. Right now, the doorways are all very narrow in the house. The house has no storage. We're going to add a bedroom bathroom area, which would be comfortable for them. We're going to add a little bit of a dining room with a small bump out that John will explain when he runs through the plan. So there's 2 bump outs, which one is for the dining room and one is for a bedroom. We're going to make the garage a little bit wider because right now you can't open up 2-car doors in it at the same time. And we're going to build an upstairs area for my wife and myself and an office and probably a place to watch TV. It's all a conforming use. I did speak with all of our neighbors on the street. One, I don't know if you got the email today, Cassandra. One sent an email of support. That's the closest abutter, which is ADA, that supports the project. Nobody else opposed the project, but we did speak with everybody. And with that, I will be quiet and let John explain the details. And Carmen, if you have any questions for her as well. Thank you.
Good evening, John Teriyaki, Teriyaki Architectural Design. I will go ahead and share my screen to go through some of the drawings that we submitted. Just an overview of the site plan, the yellow shading showing the existing footprint of the house, access through a shared driveway configuration. This is the existing driveway area of the current house, the existing garages here. And this gives you a snapshot of the 3 footprint changes that we're proposing. We are proposing to make the garage a little wider and a foot larger towards the driveway to be able to park 2 cars. And then we're adding 2 rear additions on the west side, a dining room bump out, as Peter mentioned, about 13'7" by 13'9" in footprint. And on the right side, a first floor expansion to reconfigure the bedrooms on the first floor area here. And that's about a 16 by 29 foot bump out. And a proposed open deck across the back of the house that would be on footings, which would be open below. And all these additions, the idea is that the existing grade around would remain as is. So these would be crawl spaces, including the space under the deck as well. And I will go to the architectural drawings to give you a brief overview of the existing house, its elevations, and the proposed design. Here's the existing first floor plan with the that angled wing of the existing garage and the living areas and the bedroom wing. And to give you a sense of the existing massing of the house, it's basically a 1-story ranch style with a partial basement. And here is the proposed first floor showing the expansions that we talked about, the enlarged garage, the rear dining room wing here, and then the bedroom wing here, allowing us to create a more comfortable, more accessible bedroom suite on the first floor. And there's an existing stairway inside going to the basement. We're proposing to create a new stair above that, stack a second stairway to access the upper level that we're proposing. And the upper level essentially consists of a new primary bedroom suite across the back of the house that goes partially over the footprint and over the addition here on the eastern side. And then a bonus room space partially above the garage. And then leaving the existing attic across the front as is, mainly for trying to keep the low scale of the front of the house intact and also not disturb some of the structural and mechanical areas here. So it's very much a combination of massing, and I will go through some of the proposed roof lines. This is the south elevation, so the angled front face of that garage we're proposing and the existing massing of the house. And the garage has an asymmetrical second floor primarily for zoning reasons, so that we could add the second floor and conform with the 20-foot side setback, whereas the first floor is allowed to be 15 feet. So that's a direct result of conforming with the zoning requirements. But we still think it's within the language of this house, which is a very simple gable roof structure, kind of a mid-century, enhanced mid-century aesthetic. So we're proposing to use new shingle siding and extensive trim, but keep those gables simple and ornament-free as much as possible. I'm just going to jump to the back view because that gives you a better sense of the proposed massing across the back, and also the grade drops towards the back. So there's this crawl space section under the deck, the existing basement, and the deck level here, and then the bedroom wing on the eastern side, and then the dining room addition on the western side, which is primarily a one-story addition. This across here is the west side of the garage that we're proposing. And then the opposite side of the garage is on elevation B, on the east, facing east. So it's very much a combination of different roof lines, these undulating masses, which is part of our concept, trying to work with the house, but also trying to incorporate the new program elements as directly and simply as possible. We submitted the square footage numbers. The existing house totals 2,294 square feet. The proposed design across both levels totals 4,854 square feet. 3,042 square feet is on the first floor total, and about 1,812 square feet on the second floor. We did submit some additional materials. I'll just go over it briefly, and if you have any questions, I can come back to it. But we did submit a neighborhood analysis of total square footage with respect to lot area, and then keyed in those specific houses. And the neighborhood does have a number of homes with very large square footage numbers and lots that are not necessarily that different in size. And we did include some ratio of finished area to total lot, just to give you a sense of where this project falls within the neighborhood context. The other thing that the images illustrate is the eclectic massing in the area. There is no one set architectural style. It's very much a combination of different roof forms, gambrels, mansard roofs, etc. So there is no set specific architectural or historical style that forces the project to fit into. The couple of other things I wanted to mention is the light fixtures. We did show locations of the light fixtures on the plans, and we're not proposing many of them. They're primarily across the deck here. And I know from past conversations and sensitivities of the board, we are proposing only down light fixtures with basically minimal lumens needed for egress and basic illumination. And the one other thing I wanted to mention with respect to the site plan is we are not changing existing circulation patterns. So there's an existing driveway area here that we are utilizing to access the garage, which is essentially in the same location. There's an existing walkway, the material of which will be replaced with a pervious material. And apart from the deck, there are no walkways or hardscape or grade changes proposed to the rear of the yard. So I think that summarizes what I wanted to discuss with you, and I'm happy to go back and answer any questions. And Carmen Hudson is here in case there are questions about the site aspects as well.
All right, do we have anybody from the public who's out there to be heard on this?
It doesn't look like it. Nobody's raising their hands.
No, okay. All right, let me go back to us then. Amy, would you like to start it off?
Yes, could you please refamiliarize us with the finished height of the building?
Yes. Let me go back to the existing elevations with the average grade calculated by Merrill Consulting, shown across this line, and the existing peak is at 21 feet 4.5 inches from that average grade. And our proposed design has two primary peaks. The tallest one, which is the bedroom wing from that same average grade, is 28 feet 10 inches. And then the peak over the garage is 28 feet. But the taller of the peaks is this piece, which is about almost 29 feet, just under.
All right.
How was the average determined? Was it under the new definition?
That's correct, and I'm sure Carmen can, I believe she indicated that on this, I'm just gonna go back to the site plan. She does have a worksheet on the site plan explaining how it was calculated. It's on right here. Both existing and average and existing average grade on the foundation at 12 different points, which is how she
Thank you.
calculated it.
Thank you. Anything else, Amy?
No, that's it.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, I think this is a well thought out and a lot of detail. Will make this a nice addition to that lot, and the homeowners, I think, have really thought this out and have worked closely. So I commend you with the design and the details of which. Can you just familiarize me and the audience in general with regard to the two setbacks that you alluded to and pointed out? Setback for first floor and then a setback on the second floor. One was 20 and one was 15. And is that just for this part of town? This is townwide, or just?
It's townwide, and it's basically a fine print of the zoning bylaw, as I'm sure some people in this committee are part of the working group. But it's basically a fine print allowing RB and RC zones to have expansions of a building to get close to 15 feet on the sides, as long as that expansion is under 15 feet in height. Otherwise, it has to be 20 feet to the sidelines requirement. So that's for the RB and RC districts, and RA district is a little closer because those lots are much tighter.
Right. Okay, helpful. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Hey, Deirdre, sorry.
Okay. Okay. I just want to comment, I appreciate the great effort it took to keep the mid-century modern look on this house. This is one of my favorite houses in town, not just because of its location, but its existing structure. So I appreciate the owner and the architect's hard work at maintaining the height level, so it complements that mid-century modern look. And the lighting is, again, as we know, we have some issues about lighting in lots of the places in town that have been developed or redeveloped. So this lighting looks like it will be very complementary to the structure as well as to the neighborhood and the existing houses that are around it. In size, it's very complementary to that. So I appreciate all the hard work on this project. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Deirdre. Clark?
Yeah, I don't take exception to what's being proposed here. And I do appreciate that the applicant has given us a thorough package that deals with the the criteria in the large home review. In particular, how it's harmonious and not objectionable to the other uses in the area, sort of a subjective qualification in the large house review part of the zoning bylaw. By providing the kind of context, which is a completely eclectic architectural style. And I think it provides support for what the applicant wants to do. I have no other comments. Other than on the site plan, there's a note that on over by the turnaround cul-de-sac that says existing structure over the property line, and it appears that that thing, it appears that that's a easement where the structure encroaches on an easement, but not over the property line. So I don't have any other comments or questions other than to say that that appears to be a structure that's over an easement instead of a property line.
I believe you're correct, Clark, but yeah, and that doesn't really pertain to this project, but you're right, that should be.
No, but it was on the
Yeah.
plan, so I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure that we weren't looking at a plan that had buildings over property lines. And the scenic restriction area, is that a view corridor easement for the benefit of the neighbors on the land side?
Yes, I believe so. I believe that's exactly what it is, but I'll let.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why when we went and designed it, we designed it really to fit within not only the neighborhood, but the restriction on the land to take care of really everybody's concerns. I'm presuming that's why we didn't get any objections.
Yeah, view corridor easements for the benefit of your neighbors has got to be a way to keep your neighbors happy.
It's a
That's
much,
great.
much happier way of living life.
Yeah, and certainly I understand the issues of elderly relatives to try to accommodate them. There's a whole set of particular issues in doorway width and a procession from where you park to where people are sleeping, eating, doing their things. So those details matter, and so I applaud your effort to have a multi-generational home.
Thank you. Actually, the thanks goes to my wife.
There you go. A smart man.
And they're my in-laws, not my parents.
Yeah. Well, it's all one family. So that's however that works out.
Thank you.
But no other comments.
Okay.
Ready to make a motion.
Well, I have
But Tom
I
has-
have one question, given the intended use of this, is why this isn't proceeding as an accessory dwelling unit under that bylaw. And my specific concern is that the number of bedrooms are being increased, and I imagine septic systems here are, they're not great. They're tight. This might be served by a cesspool, and I'm wondering if this needs Board of Health scrutiny.
So this is not septic, and it's not an accessory use, and it's not even a for sure that my parents are going to. My mother says someday she absolutely wants to. My father says he doesn't know. But it absolutely doesn't fit within the accessory bylaw. This is not a separate area. They're not going to have separate access. It's not like the people who are, only because I've read that bylaw thoroughly for other people, where they're going to be coming in from another area, like locking off a basement. In this case, we have no basement. We have a few hundred square feet. But yeah, and we're also eliminating, well, the number of bedrooms doesn't matter in the zoning code, but we're also eliminating what was called a bedroom, which has no closet in here. So it really doesn't fit within that definition. I respect what your question is, but it doesn't fit.
Your property's on sewer?
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Your property
Sewer.
is on sewer?
Yes. Yeah, municipal. Yep.
So he could add as many bedrooms as he wants.
That's
Correct.
fine.
We are in
didn't-
fact
I
eliminating one.
assumed that area was still served by a lot of stuff.
No, we're absolutely municipal.
All right.
Thank you.
I believe the town does charge, they do have a fee, even though it's on sewer, they do charge fee per number of bedrooms as well. I
Yeah.
think that's their way of
Yep.
controlling that process.
Okay. All right, anybody else have any questions, comments from either side of the table here? No. All right, I'll entertain a motion from anyone.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the project without conditions as proposed.
Second,
Okay, any discussion on that? No? All right, all in favor, alphabetical,
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, I.
All set then.
Good luck.
Very much.
All right, good
Thank
luck
you very
with the
much.
project.
Thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Right,
Okay,
all right, next up we have, what is it, 74 or 70? Is it
well,
70.
70 Black Horse Lane?
No. I thought we had Windy Hill.
Nope,
Nope, Windy Hill's next meeting.
Okay. So then, this is being continued, is that correct?
yeah, is this a continuation or a new application?
No, this is a new application for an A&R.
Okay, so we don't have any notice to read them.
Okay.
All righty then. All right, is everyone here on number 70?
Greg is here. I'm pulling him forward now. And looks like Adam Brodsky is here for 70.
All right, so we're here for a new A&R application for 70 Black Horse Lane. Mr. Brodsky, Mr. Morse, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do a share screen here and put a copy of the A&R plan up. Excellent. You can see that. Great. For the record, my name's Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing the property owner, Jack LLC. We're seeking an A&R endorsement at the property at 70 Black Horse Lane. The existing property is a little over 3.8 acres in size. It's located in the Residence B zoning district, which requires 35,000 square feet per lot. This is a division of the property, the existing property, into 2 lots. As you know, this was before you in July. We withdrew it with a plan. His plan is substantially the same, but since that meeting in July, we've essentially done 2 things. One, we've met with the zoning enforcement officer, John Hallen, and the direct abutter. The zoning enforcement officer suggested that we add a turnaround at the entrance of the project where you come in from the public portion of Black Horse Lane onto the private portion of Black Horse Lane. My cursor here depicts that turnaround being proposed as a paved turnaround with an easement around it, which is to run for the benefit of the town of Cohasset. Secondly, what I heard from the meeting when we met with the board in July was that the board wasn't comfortable with the division because the barn on this site might not be considered a substantial structure. The barn, again, being this structure here, the existing home at the site being this structure here. And you specifically made reference to an A&R seeking endorsement under the 81L provision on Atlantic Ave that had been recently denied. In that case there, your town planner forwarded me a copy of the plan, significantly different. That was a house with a detached single car garage. What we have here at 70 Black Horse is significantly different. We'll discuss that further in a minute. So I updated our application package This is one of the most comprehensive A&R packages I have submitted to a planning board seeking endorsement in over 20 years of business. We're making the determination here that the barn is a substantial structure. We started by doing an invitation to the town planner and the planning board to walk the site via email on July 31st. I'm not aware that anyone has walked through the site, but we extended the invitation. I submitted pictures of the barn. I included them with our application as Exhibit 4B. There are 3 pictures of the interior and exterior. Of note, the interior of the barn has finished space in it with moldings, carpet, heat, water, septic system attached. There's paint on the walls, there's built-in cabinetry, and an artist's mural painted. I submitted as Exhibit 4A a set of floor plans of the complete structure. And in substantiating its size, I quantified the square footage of the structure. The footprint of the barn, not including the greenhouse, is 3,162 square feet, with a gross floor area in the building of 4,583 square feet. Per the Cohasset bylaws, the barn would require a large home review. We provided you with a copy of the Mass Historical Commission documentations as Exhibit 4C. Ms. Glassmeyer had requested some historical information the last time we presented the project in July. So Mass Historical had documentation on record for both the house and the barn. They document the house as being built in 1742 and the barn being built, quote, before 1876. So with that information, we're asking the board to endorse the approval not required plan that we have submitted. To be clear, A&R endorsement is not an approval. It's not a special permit. It's a simple endorsement that the plan does not depict a subdivision per the subdivision control law. I included in the application Exhibit 2A, which is the definition of the subdivision. It depicts what a subdivision is and specifically what a subdivision isn't. The definition says that a subdivision is not when a tract of land which has 2 structures which predate the subdivision control law is divided, with 1 structure remaining on each lot. Included in the application was an email from Cassandra Thayer as Exhibit 2B, which documents that the town of Cohasset uses 1955 as the date that the subdivision control law went into effect in the town of Cohasset. So at this point, I would just like to ask if anyone wants to question the dates that these 2 buildings were constructed. If there's no questions on the dates that these 2 buildings are constructed, we can move forward with A&R endorsement. I turn it over to you.
Amy, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the detailed description. Can you remind us of the tax status of the barn structure? Is it on the assessor's map as a residence?
It's not on as a residence, and the use of the structure does not dictate in a case like this. But it is on. It is included on the assessor's card. It is taxed.
But it's not taxed as a residence.
No, it's not. Use
Okay.
of the structure has no bearing under the subdivision control law.
All right. Was this particular structure seen by the ZBA?
No, it was not, for the simple fact that it complies with all dimensional requirements of the Cohasset zoning bylaw.
So where is it in the regulation that indicates that the use function does not matter? That you're in a situation like this where this is designated, I guess, on the tax rolls as not a residence?
Sure.
Greg, it's Adam Brodsky. Do you want me to tackle that?
Sure, Adam. Yep.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. This is Adam Brodsky, and as you know, I'm a local environmental and land use lawyer. That issue has been squarely addressed by the courts. beginning with the case of Citgo Petroleum Corporation versus Planning Board of Braintree and the cases thereafter. And the appeals court, as well as the trial courts, have made clear that because use is not referenced in the subdivision control statute, and in particular, the definition of 81L, it's irrelevant to the determination by the planning board. The planning board really does not have discretion here. If the plan does not show a subdivision, you're obligated under the statute to issue the endorsement. In fact, the language is the planning board shall forthwith endorse the plan. And that's Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81P. So all we need to do is to take advantage of the 81L exemption, is to demonstrate that there were 2 buildings on the lot. Those buildings predated the adoption of subdivision control. And by virtue of that, the planning board is obligated to endorse the plan. And interestingly, the notion of a substantial building, I don't actually think is the case law. That was dicta that came out of the Citgo Petroleum Corporation case, and in later trial court cases, including the Taylor case that Greg included in his package. I think it makes clear that that is not a statutory requirement. Regardless, in Taylor, the land court, which is the trial court, said, I'm going to make a determination regarding its substantial. So again, that is only one ground for the exemption. This actually qualifies for endorsement under 81P, because again, it will shows 2 lots with frontage on a way that is used by the public and with adequate frontage on each lot that satisfies your zoning bylaw. So I believe the planning board is obligated to endorse the plan under both the 81L exemption and under 81P generally. And as Greg said, this is not a permit to do anything. This is simply the division of the land in compliance with the subdivision control law. And so any considerations regarding the redevelopment of the property are for another day and potentially another board. But again, that's not even before this board. So I hope that answers your question, Ms. Glassmeyer.
I have no further comments at this time.
Well, I will chime in that we had our own legal opinion the last time. And we discussed the Citgo case and we discussed the Taylor case. And my own view, nothing's changed here. We said it wasn't a substantial structure. You're just essentially back here and saying, but yes, it really is. And Adam, you weren't here for the July hearing. And so, I don't think anything's changed here, and I don't think our opinion should change between what we said in July. Council unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight, but we did have the opinion of council for our benefit for the last time.
And again, thank you, Mr. Callahan. I was not here. I don't have the benefit of that. I don't know how you could find this to be an insubstantial structure like a dog house or a chicken coop. I believe those are the examples used in Citgo for all of the reasons that Greg said. So I think the board would be factually incorrect if it made that finding. Regardless, it's an interesting legal question as to whether or not we need to demonstrate that the structure is substantial. But I don't think the board's position on that, if that's the board's position, is credible given my reading of the case law, and more importantly, Mr. Morse's description of how large this structure is, and how developed it's been. And again, I think Taylor, while a trial court case, is on all fours, and I think that
A trial court,
board,
as our counsel pointed out, a trial court case with no precedential value whatsoever.
Yes, sir. Which is why I'm relying upon Citgo. I think the planning board loses on that.
Well, the other thing I wanted to bring up is, since you're here representing now this client, I mean, you obviously are aware that 94 Black Horse is coming into the subdivision next week, or 2 weeks.
Yes, sir.
On the same way, which I would not hardly call a public way or in any way, shape or form, but has there been any discussion between your two clients to try to coordinate all of this?
So
Just deal with this as a subdivision as it should be, given what the prospective development of this area will be.
thank you. I just want to make it clear that this portion of Black Horse Way is a private way. There's been no suggestion that it's a public way, but it's a public way that is used by members of the public. And as you know, under your zoning bylaw, you need to have frontage on a street. A street is defined under the Cohasset zoning bylaw as either a public way or a private way, used by the public. As far as 94 Black Horse Lane, I'm not here in that capacity, and candidly don't feel comfortable asking any questions regarding that matter. That public hearing hasn't been opened yet.
Mr. Chairman,
I might strongly suggest your clients coordinate with each other, but
Mr. Chairman, this is Greg
Yes.
speaking. I met with the abutter regarding that project. I met with your zoning enforcement officer, and I met with my client at Cohasset Town Hall. We discussed construction of a turnaround on my client's property, and we've done that. We were suggested that if we added that, that would alleviate the planning board's issues. We've done exactly what was requested of us. We
Yeah.
provided that proposed turnaround to the abutters engineer, and I believe they've depicted turnaround in that location on their subdivision plans. This project doesn't warrant a definitive subdivision. There's an existing right-of-way in place. Furthermore, this project is substantially different for the fact that there were two existing buildings, both predating the subdivision control law. This is different than 94 Black Horse, because 94 Black Horse has one home on it.
I'm sorry, you cut out at the end there.
94 Black Horse does not have two structures on it which predate subdivision control law. It would not be entitled to an endorsement on an A&R the way that my client's property is.
I've got some comments for discussion. Tom?
Yeah, go ahead, Clark.
Yeah, so, I see that the applicant, for endorsement has made some changes to what was proposed, last time. And while we did question, whether that barn structure would, qualify as a separate structure, under the 81L, option. But, the thing that sticks out in my mind is, well, there's two things, but one is that in the subdivision definition of 81L, we've got three ways. One is a public way that the clerk says is used as a public way. B is a way shown on a plan endorsed in the subdivision control law, and then C, a way in existing when the subdivision came into control, having, in the opinion of the board, sufficient width, suitable grades, adequate construction for the needs of particular traffic. It's not a public way. It's the private portion of Black Horse historically. It certainly isn't a part of an endorsed subdivision. And then I think that in terms of endorsing the A&R, I think that the planning board should focus on this C, a way in existence, having, in the opinion of the planning board, sufficient width, suitable grades, and adequate construction. And we know this is like it's a driveway. Maybe it's 12 feet wide. And I think that the planning board, if for whatever reason wants to withhold endorsement, I think this C is based on is our criteria for not endorsing it. And while at the same time, you know, obviously on our agenda tonight was a subdivision that goes further down, which would involve perhaps making what's shown as frontage on this way that predates subdivision control law would make it adequate. As it stands right now, I don't think the 12 feet of asphalt, it may or may not be damaged. I don't actually know that. I have been to this site, but not in the last 5 or 6 months. So I'd like to discuss that as a board, whether the way that they're taking frontage on, and it is actually somebody's lot, but the way itself does predate zoning. There is like a 1936 plan that shows proposed right of way, I believe what the language is. It doesn't say it's an approved easement or anything, and I don't know if we have any easement documentation, but I think the question for the board is this way of sufficient width, grade, and construction to say, yes, you could take frontage on this way and we can endorse the A&R. Is there discussion?
Well, everybody recall that 94 first applied under the common driveway rules, and you know, essentially saying this is a common driveway, and our problem with that was that we can't allow frontage on a common driveway. You know, there's been no official determination.
Well, no, but Tom, it says right here under C, and I've got the Mass General Law in front of me.
Yeah.
Way in existence when the subdivision control law came into effect. It's a way. We know that. But is it adequate width, construction, and grade? It's flat, so the grade issue, is it adequate width and construction? Now, the proposed upgrades for the lots further south perhaps would answer this question. So I would say it's entirely possible that this way in existence prior to subdivision control laws will be adequate at some time in the future. But this applicant isn't proposing any upgrade to it. So the question to the board, I believe, if not endorsing this A&R is being contemplated, is the way of suitable width and construction. I think that's the laser focus
Chair
issue.
Callahan, this is Adam Brodsky. I'd like to comment at an appropriate time because I think Mr. Brewer may have conflated two separate concepts as a matter of law, which is that the 81L exemption is not subject to the same analysis that you would do for an A&R plan being reviewed under 81P. So you don't have to prove both you're entitled to 81L exemption and also meet all the requirements with respect to access under 81P. I don't have the cases in front of me. I'm pretty sure I read cases that made that distinction. So if Mr. Brewer believes
you're suggesting you should get this under 81L period. If not, you get it under 81P.
that is, we're suggesting we qualify under both, but the point being is that Mr. Brewer said it qualifies under the 81L option. That is the 81L exemption. If it qualifies under the 81L exemption, the planning board must endorse the plan. It doesn't need to reach the determination of access and the suitability of the way under 81P. They're separate analyses.
Yep, I understand that. And
That's under 81L. Section C is the adequacy of the way determination. A, B, and C are under the subdivision definition in 81L.
Exhibit 2A of our application includes the full definition of a subdivision, and it's the last sentence that you want to look at, Mr. Brewer. It specifically states, that conveyances.
I have it in front of me. If you would like to read it, that'd be fine.
Yes, Conveyances or other instruments adding to, taking away from, or changing the size and shape of lots in such a manner as to not leave any lot so affected without the frontage set forth above, or the division of a tract of land on which 2 or more buildings were standing when the subdivision control law went into effect in the city or town in which the land lies into separate lots, on each of which one of such buildings remains standing, shall not constitute a subdivision. It's the last sentence. We've qualified under that provision. You don't do the standard 81P review of the adequacy of the way that you've been discussing above. You don't have to talk about adequacy of the way with an 81 exemption because the 2 structures exist. Presumably, and as I've shown on the plan, access to both of those structures already exists.
Cassandra, we had a hand up from a Mr. Canny. I don't know if he wants to.
There
Get
is
on.
someone who is written in the Q&A, but technically
Yes.
A&Rs are not public hearings, so that's up to you if you would like to entertain public comment.
Well, before we do that, I just want to I have the 81L out, and then it does say you can change the shape of the lots in such a manner as not to leave any lot so affected without the frontage above set forth, and the frontage
Or
the
read the
three
next.
the frontage is, it's got to be an adequate way, either A, B, or C in the subdivision definition.
You need to read the second part of that sentence, which is the or portion, Mr. Brewer. We qualify under the or the division of a tract of land portion. Doesn't reference frontage.
You keep saying we qualify as if it's a foregone conclusion. That'll be our determination. I don't appreciate that you think we have 0 options choice here. All right. Anybody else from the board want to be here? I mean, my position right now is you don't qualify under either 81L or 81P, and 81L we dealt with the last time, and we'll just repeat and reincorporate everything we did there. You can describe the barn and as grandly as you like. It still, to me, is not a qualifying structure. And I don't believe that the way is adequate, given the extra lot load that you're asking to be put on it. And it's, again, Mr. Canny is like to speak. I would put it to the board if it's okay, but his point essentially is that no one's ever provided documentation about what this private way portion really is. You know, that my position is you don't qualify under either, and I would deny it under for both grounds, 81L or 81P. But does anyone want to hear from Mr. Canny? Is anybody opposed to that, since this is not a public hearing?
We got a couple of hands up here.
Yeah, no, I do.
Deirdre
All right,
hands
yes.
up.
All right, let's hold on with Mr. Canny then. Kevin, go ahead, and then Deirdre.
Yeah, I just like to know if Greg, you mentioned the application had photos within it. Is that something that you can put across the screen now for public viewing? Photos of this barn structure.
Kevin, you can also access that through the planning boards.
Absolutely, completely
Website.
aware of that.
Okay.
I'm talking about now for the purposes of this public applicant in this public setting. Can those be shown like you're showing plans right now? Can you just show those? Is that possible, Greg?
Do you see the application I'm scrolling through right now?
Hold on, I'm lowering my hand. Sorry. Okay. I do.
That's a picture of one of the interiors. You see on the left-hand side here, the built-in cabinetry. You see underneath that a heater. This is a carpeted floor. You see moldings around the windows. You see crown molding along the top of the finished ceiling. Here's a mural that was painted on the wall. There's an electrical outlet right here. That's one of the finished rooms in the barn.
What are the other pictures that you have in the package?
Picture of the exterior of the building. You can see that there's a chimney here. There's a full functioning oil burner. There's full heat in the barn. It's weather tight. It's substantial in footprint. It's substantial in gross floor area. It has a full foundation under it. It's got a full second level on it. It's got a basement under it. Here's one of the partially finished rooms. You have a utility closet on the side here. There's in this room, just beyond this doorway, there's a toilet. There's a sink present. You know, there's doors with moldings on them. There's heat. There's a thermostat on the wall. There's an electrical outlet. Those are the three pictures that I submitted.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate you showing that, Greg. Just two other points here. Is there a history of occupancy of this building? And has that been documented? When was the last time someone has lived in this thing other than in a temporary or intermittent fashion? Is there any record of that?
So the subdivision control law doesn't require it to have been used as a residence. It just has to be a structure that predates subdivision control law.
Fine,
so
but can you answer the question? I mean, if I'm going beyond the bounds of what your application.
If I go in there right now, there are personal belongings in there. There's no one living in the structure currently, but there's certainly material and personal belongings in the barn today.
But I guess the heart of my question was, is there any record of when that last use occurred and this whether
Not
it
that
was
I'm
a
aware of.
substantial nature or not? Okay. And then finally, with regard to the adequacy of the road or anything, you're an engineer, has any engineer made any determination either on the part of the applicant or on any other entities along the road with regard to the adequacy of this road where the frontage is on?
Sorry, this is Adam Brodsky, and I'm going to defer to Greg. I believe that the planning board itself has previously approved A&Rs using this portion of Black Horse Lane. So the planning board has on prior occasions already determined that the way is suitable. So I think the planning board is going to be in a difficult position if it is approved A&R plans or previously determining that the way is suitable and then arbitrarily making a different decision in this instance.
We're not bound by it. We're not bound by our past mistakes.
I would also add that the zoning enforcement officer has issued new construction building permits on 2 lots beyond the locus. And we had emailed requesting the zoning enforcement officer to make an opinion on the road, Black Horse Lane being a road per the Cohasset zoning bylaw. And he did not disagree with our analysis that the road meets the definition under the Cohasset zoning bylaw.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Kevin. Deirdre? You're muted. You're muted.
So there I am. I just am curious, have we heard from the fire chief? And where the fire hydrants are and everything that were quoted on this public way? I don't know, Cassandra, I know Cassandra had made a request, I assume, to the fire chief to let us know for the town council.
Yes, last time the applicant was before us, I had reached out to the fire chief. I did not hear back.
Okay. I think that would be critical.
There is a brand new water main that was installed and a new fire hydrant within the Black Horse Lane right of way right here, as well as there are sewer and sewer and electric utilities as well. There is a hydrant just at the bottom of the page here at the end of that water main extension. The two new lots, have been signed off by the fire department that there's adequacy there of fire suppression and access.
Okay, and I'm just curious, I had the same question Kevin did about the barn and if we're making a viable place, as I mean, I could move in tomorrow and it would be functioning as a residence. That's it.
That would be a conforming use with the Cohasset zoning bylaw.
And again, through you, Chair, Ms. Hobson, we don't need to establish that it was used for residential use under the 81L exemption. We need to demonstrate that we have two buildings on the lot, not even structures, two buildings on the lot. We've talked about this substantiality requirement. Again, I have an opinion as to that. I don't see how the planning board could, in good faith, make a factual finding that the barn is not a substantial building, given all of the guidance from the appeals court and the various trial courts.
Just one more quick question. Is that barn in the flood zone?
This dash line here represents the floodplain. It comes right up to the back of the barn itself.
Thank you.
Again, I'll ask the board, since this is not a public hearing, are you open to hearing from members of the public? I see that, we have Mr. Canny who's willing to speak. I see we have another hands up by someone named Steve. I'm going to assume, well, I won't assume who that is, but what's the board's pleasure on that?
I am happy to hear from the people who have called, written in.
Everyone else?
I am as well.
I accept.
Okay. Cassandra, if you could promote Mr. Canny and Steve. And Kevin, I see your hand up. We'll get back to you. So,
Hello, can you hear me?
yes, go ahead. You have the floor, Mr. Canny.
Thank you. Paul Canny, 10 Black Horse Lane. The point I would like to make is just going back to the original 2017 approval of the A&R by, I believe it's JKC that applied. Now, this board and previous boards have acknowledged that that decision was made in error. And I would further state that during that hearing and subsequent hearings, no proof or documentation was ever offered that the 94 Black Horse Lane driveway was in fact an extension of Black Horse Lane. And in fact, you'll see how the applicant has carefully phrased the words to say, which state way appears in a 1936 plan. They've never offered documentation. They've never proved that Black Horse Lane extends up 94. Therefore, there is no frontage. Whether the board approved it or not in 2017, erroneously, the genie's been let out of the bottle. It can be put back in. Therefore, this application for 2 lots has no frontage. That was my statement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Canny. And do we have someone else? Cassandra?
I did pull Steve forward, so he has the opportunity to speak.
Mysterious Steve with no last name. You have the floor if you're here.
Hello?
Yes. Can you
I'm
identify
sorry,
yourself?
but, this is Steve Callahan. I'm the applicant.
Okay.
I was trying to answer a few questions earlier. I'm not sure if Greg maybe have answered them or Adam. It was really regards to what's gone on, a little update from, when we purchased this property over 6 years ago. And we have done improvements to the road. We brought in upgraded all the utilities. Back then, there was a previous owner on 94. We worked with him, and since then the property's been sold. But we extended the water, all coordinated with the local departments. Water, the fire department was part of that. Where we met on site, he located fire hydrants where he wanted them. The whole discussion about access and circulation was satisfied to him. Back then, we brought all those utilities in, upgraded them to Chip Smith was the previous owner of 94. We upgraded, that was the deal. He owns that road property. We don't own the road. but we did all the improvements. We repaved it. It's 12 feet wide, and then we added in a little turnoff halfway up the hill, I'll call it. So there was passing allowed there. So that was just one thing. I mean, we've been 6 years at this trying to sell this property. Mr. Wright hasn't come along, so I made the decision to get down this road, and I plan to develop it. I'm a builder developer my whole life, and it was my goal to work closely with the board, with the town, with all the folks that we have faced so far. I think, worked closely with. Prior to bringing this A&R in, I called John Hallen, and we set up a meeting, and I brought my architect in for the barn, and I just to give him a heads up, and he certainly told me, well, you need an A&R first. So we said, we know that, and we assembled the team. The plans for the barn are 80% complete. We know that's not for tonight's discussion, but I just want you to know how much work has gone in and what the plan is here. The goal was to get the barn certainly carved off on an A&R, completely renovated, which it's desperate need of. It hasn't been touched in probably 100 years. But it was, as Greg said earlier, it was lived in at some point in time. It certainly isn't right now, and it hasn't been since we've been there. The plan also was to figure out the main house. There's been nobody in there for 6 years. The place is an eyesore, and now I want to move forward and clean it all up and develop them both. As soon as we get the barn squared away, it was our goal to come in to see the board, and we'll figure out what we're doing with the house, whether that's a complete renovation or maybe it's a demolition and a rebuild. We'll determine that, and we'll certainly be talking about it. I don't know what else I can tell you to give you a little history and who I am, but open to any questions if I can answer anything that hasn't been answered already.
Thank you. And for the record, Mr. Callahan and I are not related, other than centuries ago in some gene pool, I imagine. But unfortunately, you're telling us that this is going to be redeveloped, and there's going to be more burden put on this road and way, whatever it is, common driveway. And this is not an attempt to stop development, but there is another solution here. And right now, 94 is pursuing that solution, and this should be coordinated with 94, that we get a proper subdivision road put in here, and then everybody can build what they want. But under an A&R, you're asking us to set some very difficult precedents for us, I think, on an inadequate way to handle the scope of development that's coming.
But excuse me, just to interrupt you, Tom, that way with the subdivision, definitive subdivision proposal, that way would become adequate.
Yeah.
And
when it happens.
It's just that it's not adequate right now at the date of this A&R
correct
application.
Correct. And in my opinion, simply my opinion, the smart thing would be to coordinate with the neighbor and get it done right, and everybody would get to their end goal, which is to build more houses as quickly, lot sooner, certainly as quickly as possible. But
Mr. Chairman, this is Adam Brodsky. I just want to make the observation, there's no evidence to support the conclusion that the private way known as Black Horse Lane is inadequate to provide safe passage. It already provides access to existing structures and has provided access to the two structures which are the subject of the A&R plan for decades.
But you're choosing to have us ignore the fact that there are proposals to at least have 7, if not more, structures served by this inadequate way. It's,
No, that's not true.
Well-
The board denied those
We-
applications. They're under appeal. And there is a plan submitted to an attempt to reach a compromise with the board. So I don't think, I don't think that summary is accurate.
Kevin, I know you had your hand up before. I'm gonna go to you.
Appreciate it, Tom. I'm gonna remove my hand and defer to others that have further questions.
Ally, unless you have anything new to add, again, since this is not officially a public hearing, I think we've heard everything from your team, unless there's some new, absolutely new information you want to add.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't know if it matters, but when I defer to Greg and Adam, and when it comes to that access question, we're not at, I mean, I don't technically need access. We have it. We have a driveway now to the barn. I'm not sure I'm getting confused over the questions here. Not sure we're answering them the way you want.
Right, but what we see on the plan, it looks like there's frontage at the end of your lots on this Black Horse private portion. That's what we see on the plan.
Yeah,
Yes, you
that's
do have
correct.
a driveway, and that's a common driveway. It's certainly in the future that could be an access easement to the 2 lots to the barn into the house, whether you renovate or whatever. But your frontage is off of this way, so we can't assume how you're gonna arrange your access easements. We can see that you have a driveway there. That may be inadequate for two lots. But we feel quite strongly that, I mean, I feel quite strongly that the private way portion of Black Horse Lane is inadequate, and one of your neighbors plans to do something about it. And I think this is a timing issue.
I've had my hand up for a while.
Can't see it because of the, Greg, could you stop the screen sharing? Because it's blocking my view of the whole panel, if you don't mind. I think
Sure.
we've seen what we need to see. Thank you, though, for putting it on.
I would like to comment that we have seen pictures of the Black Horse Lane part of this course several times in pictures, filled with water and almost impossible to pass. We've also had people who live in the surrounding area that have commented that as more residences are being built, the problem is getting worse. I don't think we have any evidence that there is physically a substantial change that would relieve the burden on the road. And so from the very beginning, this was one of the major issues why we have chosen to withhold our approval for an A&R, because it is not a sufficient road. So I find this to be a circle. We're going around in circles when in fact, all we have to do is look back at prior conversations, and we said as much many times before.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the board have anything to say? Applicant, do you want to proceed to vote? Do you want to withdraw this and see, take up my suggestion of what you should do here, but to you.
I'm gonna defer to Adam on this one.
And I'm going to defer to the client who needs to give us instructions. Again, this has been an interesting conversation regarding the adequacy of the way. It's completely irrelevant to the application of the 81L exemption. So
Understood, but do you want to take a few minutes offline to discuss it? Feel free.
Yes, thank you.
thank you
Yeah,
very
I
much.
would mute yourselves and hide your get off Adam, get off the screen. We love seeing your pretty face, but, and you can have your conversation. Thank you. And Mr. Callahan, mute yourself too. I don't see that you're muted.
So do we have any meeting minutes to approve?
Yes, we do.
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes.
Hold on. We have minutes of May 31 and June 21, 2023 to approve.
As outlined by Tom just now.
Yes.
That was a
And-
motion.
I
Yeah,
second.
motion to approve those two sets. All right, all in favor?
Clark
Aye.
Brewer, aye.
Aye. Everybody, aye.
That's
Okay.
my aye.
Unanimous. All right, and I'm gonna just ask you to just stay briefly, don't, after this is over, don't rush to a motion to adjourn, please. Well, while we're here, Cassandra, just give us a preview of what the agenda for the 20th looks like now.
So obviously 94 Black Horse Lane has been continued.
Yeah.
205 Atlantic was continued. That's a large home review that was continued a few meetings ago. And then you have 15 Windy Hill,
Which is
which is another large home review.
All right, let's do those two first and read 94, the last item of business. And on the 27th, reminder to everybody, that's our public hearing on the zoning bylaws.
Which will be in person for board members.
In person, hopefully at Wilcott, just because it's nicer, but
Yes, I have it booked.
So
good.
I'll have to shower. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and put on a shirt with a
In
collar.
person?
Put on a shirt with a
Preferable.
collar, guys. So
Put on a what?
a shirt with a collar.
Oh, yeah. That's gonna,
Going to be
somehow
a
that's important.
blended, is our next meeting is going to be blended?
Not our next meeting, no.
No,
No, Amy and I talked about that a little bit beforehand about getting us to hybrid meetings like I was at with the select board last night. And I guess the powers that be are working on that. It's a question of having the equipment to do it. I mean, I don't see a conflict with our Wednesday night meetings, but we have to get approval of the powers that be. But on the 27th, that will be live. And that is, the select board approved the referral to the planning board last night. So that's all set. And originally we reserved space for 4 warrant articles. There's only going to be 2. 2 articles in multiple parts, but 2 articles.
And the location and time on the 27th?
It'll
Has that
be
been-
6:30, correct?
Correct,
And it should
6:30
be-
at
it should
Wilcott
be at
Commons.
Wilcott Commons. Yeah, I just was joking about the collar because when I went to Saratoga for the first time in probably 2 decades, I remember everybody having to wear sport jackets and everything. Well, now the rule in the clubhouse is just collared shirts, and there was a wide interpretation of what a collared shirt was. And there were other people who still dressed up, ladies in the hats like the Kentucky Derby, and gentlemen who still come in jackets and ties like the old days, but a wide interpretation of what a collared shirt is nowadays. So I was just making, you can come as you are. It doesn't matter.
The important thing is that we're there.
Correct. All right, if we do take a vote on this, we'll do separate votes for endorsement under 81L and endorsement under 81P. Anybody have anything else to discuss about the planning board, about anything that we're?
Tom, can I just ask again about North Main Street and the meeting they had last week or the week before about a possible apartment complex or,
Oh,
Which
yeah,
is-
I went to that. That was
I'm
interesting.
sorry, I was gonna try and get there, but I
No,
couldn't.
that was interesting. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
the meeting at that meeting room in the library was sort of full, but it was also a weird configuration, the way the presenters did it, so more of a circle than anything, you know. There was, generally speaking, just opposition all through the room to it. You know, and the developer, so it is a couple of local developers plus an out-of-town guy who specializes in doing multifamily housing projects. And they were a little taken aback by the hostility as they defined it, but it was, so I you know, I haven't heard any fallout from it and what the game plan is after this, but we'll see. Stay tuned. All right, Adam, you're back.
Yes, Chair Callahan, the applicant would like the board to vote on the pending application, please.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna ask the board that we take 2 votes on the issue of endorsement under 81L. Well, first under 81L, and then depending on that vote, necessary to take one under 81P. So I'll entertain a motion regarding the application for A&R endorsement under Section 81L. Anyone want to jump forward? I'll make the motion if somebody doesn't.
Go right ahead.
All right, I'll make the motion that we not endorse the A&R under Section 81L on the grounds that the accessory structure does not meet the criteria for a building.
I second the motion.
Okay, any discussion of the motion?
Yes, I am wondering whether or not we want to rope in the question that we have been debating around the road, or will that,
Whether we take a vote under 81P depends on the outcome of this motion. So
Okay.
let's vote on this first because. All right, all in favor of the motion as presented? Roll call, alphabetical roll call. Clark,
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, I.
In light of that vote, then I will entertain a motion if anyone likes to make it about whether to endorse the A&R under Section 81P. Hearing none, I guess I'll make the motion. I move that we do not endorse the A&R under Section 81P due to the inadequacy of the way.
Second,
Any discussion of that motion? All right, roll call vote again. All in favor of the motion?
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, I.
Okay. Thank you all. Adam.
Thank
Greg,
you for your time.
Steve,
Good night.
thank you for your time and for your presentation. Okay. All right, so while we had that little break, we discussed other necessary business that we had to discuss. I just wanted to bring up the bylaw. I don't know if anybody informally has any comments on it. We are proceeding with amendment of Article 4. And the highlight of Article 4 is Judge Cutler basically following to the letter the recommendations that she made in the diagnostic. Article 15, accessory dwelling units, is going to be consolidated into Article 4. The common driveways part of Article 7 is going to be consolidated into Article 4. And we do have to deal with solar. the requests of the Attorney General, so some solar provisions are moved into Article 4. And just today, after we had our discussion with the Select Board last night, the judge caught that by oversight, we didn't address adult uses, which I had thought our current bylaw prohibited. And I had made representations at public forums that it would continue to be prohibited. But apparently our current bylaw doesn't do that. And so we are required by state law to say where it is allowed and where it's not allowed, where it's allowed by special permit and where it's not. So she has added a provision that the bylaw committee will discuss further on its meeting next Monday night. That basically would prohibit adult uses except by special permit in the technology business district, which is on 3A. Article 5 is our dimensional article. It is mostly housekeeping changes of terminology that are generated by Article 4. By the way, Article 4 will also require some definition changes to Article 2. So that's going to be the article dealing with Article 4 is going to have multiple steps to adopt the Article 4 and the new table, make changes to Article 2, move the provision from Articles, delete the provision about common driveways in Article 7 and delete Article 15 regarding accessory dwelling units. The other thing about accessory dwelling units, before I forget, the substantive changes, we are proposing to allow them to be built in accessory structures such as over garages. And on the common driveway, we didn't change the length, width, or anything of that sort, but we have proposing lowering the number of lots that can be served from 8 to 4. And long ago, research of the bylaw working group showed that the median in this area is 3. We're proposing 4. On Article 5, we're dealing mostly with the housekeeping changes that Article 4 generates. Any major substantive change to any dimensional requirement will come in the spring, if any. The only substantive change we are bringing into Article 5 is that, believe it or not, we never had a height limit on accessory structures. And you will recall from the definition of height that we changed in the discussions in the spring, we discussed that. We discussed what would happen if we do allow accessory dwelling units to be put in accessory structures. So accessory structures will have a height limit of 25 feet. That's the proposal. Otherwise, we had many times talked about a height limit in the harbor. We have deferred that to the spring. As we started to talk through it at our last ZBC meeting, we were a little wary of the quote unquote unforeseen consequences of just having a single number superimposed on base flood elevation wherever it may be. The fear was we could, even with a lower height limit, nevertheless still have a very tall building depending on what the base flood is. So we have to think through that one more. With the Article 5 changes will also come some other changes to Article 2 definitions that'll be part of that article. So that's the overview of what you're going to see, and I'll do that as a presentation on the 27th. But if anybody has any comments, feel free to submit them to me. The bylaw committee is meeting this Monday, the 11th. We're going to clean these up. Article 4 has been converted into a warrant article by the judge. He's working on doing that for Article 5, but the provisions are all there. They were circulated to you a week or so ago. You know, and I've heard one comment from one board chair. We didn't hear anything really of substance from the select board. A few questions last night, but I think they're deferring their more detailed review until after the planning board here. So.
And just to be sure, there is some content changes, and those content changes we would want to be highlighted, so separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, so that we can focus in on what's operative. You know, and I think Tom's 25-foot accessory structure height, that's probably a good number. The inclusionary zoning is going to eliminate the cache option
No, it isn't. It's just,
It's a partial payment, instead of, rounding up to the next number.
well, what we
So,
did with
so
that, what we,
it is important that these changes and how they work, because the zoning language, I mean, it's kind of hard to understand. And then necessarily vote on, without highlighting what the existing language is, how it works in front of you with the proposed language and how that works, or how it's
Understood.
intended to work.
understood, and
Um,
Judge
so-
Cutler will be
so I
joining
think-
us on
I
the
think-
20.
Yeah, Judge Cutler is giving us the outline, but again, it's important to have one and then the other right there. So we really understand as a part of the public hearing, what's operative and what is just kind of reorganization. And just for an example, the changes to the accessory dwelling unit, one of the major things is that the accessory dwelling unit approval would flow with the land as opposed to an owner. So right now, the language is set up, and a good reason why nobody's used this option in 15 years. That you sell your house and your accessory dwelling permit vanishes. You can reapply. But that means that, actually, this was Jack Creighton's point. That means if you sell your property with an accessory dwelling unit, you might not, a future owner might not be able to use that, but have to go back to the zoning bylaw and not be able to recoup the value created to the future owner or for the selling owner. And I think that those kind of things make sense and make it possible for people to use this accessory dwelling bylaw as opposed to what's happened in the past. Obviously,
Yeah, I
changes to
just-
the exterior, but these are the things that are operative that need to be highlighted with
I know,
comparable language of what's existing and what's proposed.
Well,
As opposed to just saying, hey, this is what we
No,
changed, the judge said so, and
No, I'm not, and Clark, you participated in all the bylaw committee meetings, and I wish you would chime up with this kind of stuff earlier, no disrespect.
no, I do. I chime in all the time, Tom.
I know you do, but not that.
And here, I'm just trying to prep the planning board for what needs to be focused on. So, but if you have any other criticisms of me, why don't we take them offline? Okay, pal?
Okay, Clark, whatever. The inclusionary zoning. Recall, those of you who were with us when we made the decision on the Harbor project. We basically set forth a hierarchy. The current bylaw allows for production on site, production off site, or payment in lieu. And in that decision, we pretty much set forth a hierarchy, and the applicant chose option number 2, which was the off-site, and they've already complied with it. What the new bylaw is doing is not changing the inclusionary bylaw substantively, other than to express that hierarchy, that the choices should be first and foremost on site, second off-site, third, and the last option would be payment in lieu. And on the accessory dwelling, again, we didn't move things such as the size of the units, the size of the house, the cap on it, process. We are allowing it to be put in accessory dwellings. I'm looking for the provision quickly about the continuation of it. I mean, was changed, I'd be, and it's not by me, but.
I just made an example of.
No, I know that, but
being
let me,
able to maintain
there's an
the
incredibly good
ADU
argument. There's an
when you
incredibly good
sell.
argument. Yeah, you don't want it to continue when it sells. There's an incredibly good argument for that.
Well,
But-
we changed the language. That was
Oh, I
actually
got-
Jack's
I-
idea. Has it been
I'll-
changed back?
No, not that I was looking for it just so I could confirm it one way or the other, but the overall concept, by the
Why
way.
don't we do that at our next zoning?
Yeah, no,
bylaw?
I just want to also enlighten the planning board is that the overall concept, again, when you come into the public hearing next week, read the diagnostic that Judge Cutler did and KP Law did at the beginning of this process. Specifically that part about Article 4, because that was their objective in writing this in the way it was. The reorganization of Article 4 is first separating out and clearly distinguishing principal uses and accessory uses. And then with the principal uses, the list of principal uses is far shorter. Still substantial, but it's far shorter than what we have now, going more to broader categories rather than nitpicky specific uses, which has led to some problems in the past. So that's a concept that since the beginning of this process with the previous working group is we've looked to do is to simplify this into more broader use categories. So just keep that in mind. But the judge and I were discussing today, the comments of a member of another board, and it's, she said it's important to remind him to read the diagnostic. So I would ask you all, make sure you read KP's diagnostic of the
Where does it
existing
live,
one.
Tom, for everyone's benefit? Where does that diagnostic live? Is it an email from a year ago?
I will
Is it
see that I'll see that everybody gets it, because I believe
Good.
I had separated out the Article 4 section at one point in the past, and I have it as a separate document on my computer, so I can make sure that you all have that. But it's important for the context with regard to a side-by-side comparison. It was requested that everything be redlined, but it's too substantial to redline. Article 5 at the moment has marginal references in the draft that show you the corresponding to the existing and shows where there's substantive change and where there isn't. Article 4, it'd just be organizationally impossible to do.
But Tom,
complete
I don't think anybody, the public or the planning board, needs every single solitary change. While some might be operative, I think it's the significant ones
Yes,
that you want to understand what the intent of the change is and how it's worded, because let's face it, words can be interpreted in lots of different ways. There is an element of risk in changing bylaws of unintended consequences. We didn't really think that through that way when it comes into practice, and that's one of the benefits of being on the planning board, where we get to see what we've created, how it works, and in some cases how it doesn't work or needs to be perfected. So we do have the opportunity to make these changes and see how it goes.
Right. Well, you know too that the judge was very thorough in highlighting where there were changes and getting in our input, and the reason not only town meeting being moved up a month earlier than we originally thought is the reason we are doing 2 other articles is because we've spent so much time on Article 4 that I think have given it a very, very thorough review. So again, the judge will be there. That's why we set this up for a separate night without any other items on our agenda, so that we can have a very thorough discussion and explanation. The other thing, so this is the
Will any other boards be there, like say the clean energy or the alternative energy committee, to weigh in on that whole new part of section 4 in that language?
These have been circulated. So Tanya Bodell, the chair of the Alternative Energy Committee, was at our meeting on August 28th, and we explained to her what has to be put into Article 4 regarding solar. These articles have been distributed to the chairs of AEC, zoning, and advisory, and the select board for them to circulate to their members. I believe that's all been done. Meeting with Alternative Energy on the 14th to go over, and again, their part of this is very small, just the solar changes that have been added to Article 4. And
also the big one is the wind energy conversion is going to be limited to technology business district instead of being anywhere in town.
We haven't touched it. please, we haven't touched on wind energy. Articles
Yeah, we have,
19
we talked about it. That's
we
that's
talked
what
about,
was
we
gonna be
talked about.
changed in the table.
we
That's what our
talked-
committee recommended. I mean,
Ye-
to me, it's a big.
Point
big
of
change
order,
for renewable
point of
All right,
order.
I'm not gonna get into this argument about this, but
Point of order.
yes, what?
What are we talking about and why are just two of you arguing? Let's
That's a
Not
good, that's a
do
good,
arguing.
our business. We
I'm just trying
still
to bring up
have,
an important point.
point of
That's-
order, point of order. We still have something on our agenda that we need to address.
which
So
is what?
let's go back to that work first, and then you can fight it out about what is and what isn't.
We're not
I am not
fighting.
prepared to listen to you talk to each other and get into a disagreement. It makes no sense and it goes on forever. So let's
All
deal,
right, fine, just,
I'm not sure what you mean.
never mind, just
let's move
read,
forward on what we have left in our business.
read the materials and read the diagnostic before the 27th hearing. That's all I ask, okay? That's it. What else is on our agenda? Am I missing something here? We did
Didn't you-
minutes?
Didn't you say that we had another large house review?
No. A motion to adjourn if someone wants to make it.
I'm making a motion to adjourn.
Fine,
Second,
all right, all in favor?
Clark Brewer, aye.
Tom Callahan, aye.
Amy Glassmeyer, aye.
Kevin Heine, aye.
Deirdre Hobson, I.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
See you on the
Thanks, all.
20th.
Couple weeks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.